Welcome to Pachamama Sacred Paths podcast. This podcast was created with the purpose of informing and sharing ancient ancestral wisdom relating to shamanism and sacred plant medicines, as well as other modalities of spirituality. Our mission is to share a safe and reverent understanding for anyone who is interested in healing and growing through shamanism, sacred plant medicines, Hinduism, and silence. If you would like to experience firsthand the pragmatic transformation that shamanism has to offer, please visit our retreats page, pachamamasacredpaths.org, at estimo.org, or you can click on the link appearing on the screen or go to the comment section below.
Hello everyone, thank you for joining us today. This is Pachamama Sacred Paths podcast, and we want to welcome you. My name is Andres Villa.
And I'm Sabrina.
And today we are continuing with our second episode on Mother Ayahuasca. We're going to be talking about the experience itself, specifically to three main stages that we encounter every time that we have an experience with Mother Ayahuasca, communion with Mother Ayahuasca. And for today's episode, we have a special guest. We have Brenda Silva.
Hi, everyone.
And she's going to be sharing a little bit with us what has been her experience in relationship to these three stages. we have found that the journey with Mother Ayahuasca can be a little bit confusing at times, because it's not we're really not used to sometimes on dealing with the time space within the Ghetto tradition. Is called the causa y pacha, and because it's not an intuitive space to navigate. Sometimes the visions can have no meaning, right? Or it feels like we get some images, or we go through experiences that feels like they have no purpose, right? So the purpose of this podcast today is just to give a little bit of insight of what happens, right? What happens during the experience. And so, Sabrina, would you like to begin sharing with us what is your experience with the first stage?
Sure. So I think every time, I've sat with ayahuasca quite a few times. I haven't counted, but it's been quite a few times. The first time that I ever sat with ayahuasca, my purge, it was a lot of physical. The very first time I ever consumed it, I was purging with vomit. I was purging in the number two, going to the toilet. I was purging with tears and yawn, every possible way to purge. Sweating, I experienced all of it. It was okay. I was like, okay, this is great. I could feel this, because at the same time it was almost like the cycle during that whole circle where I would purge, and then I would think of something and I would have to purge again because that thought required, and I was ready to let go of that thought. So it was this cycle of vision and teaching, but then, everyone would come with a purge. And so every we come in with intention to these circles to sit with this medicine. And my intentions were pretty much met within the first 5 minutes of the medicine kicking in, and from there it was just continued purging. So for me, the three phases that we're going to talk about that first night, it was repeated over and over and over and over and over for me. Every time an idea or belief or something was challenged and I was ready to let it go, the purge would come. And so it was just this nonstop night. Now, since my first experience with ayahuasca, it gets a little bit calmer. I don't have quite as much to purge, I don't think, as I did that first time. So if I purge now, it's probably once, and it's not nearly as much resistance coming from inside. I don't try to hold it back. I let it flow, and the purge happens a lot easier. It's sometimes these days the purge is more frequently than not. The purge is going to be going to the bathroom for me, and then occasionally it'll be vomiting. Really kind of depends on where I'm at. And I think when we were talking with Arceli a few episodes ago, she had mentioned the vomit being energetic and number going to the bathroom being physical, I think. So, and I could relate to that quite a bit. That makes sense for how I purge and the methods I purge. Tears was a big one. You know, tears is always a big one for me in a lot of different medicines, but in ayahuasca, that's it. That's another one that happens quite frequently. Yeah. So my experience with purging is that there is always at least one or two things that get purged in one method or another. And I can, it usually is in line with what my intention is. So I've yet to purge something that I didn't quite understand what I was purging. There's usually some indication. So
Nice.
yeah.
Thank you.
Mm-hmm.
What has been your experience with that first stage, which is the physical aspect of Mother Ayahuasca? What has been your experience?
The first time it took me. At first I thought I was having no experience because I didn't purge. Like, it took me a long time to purge. Had to do. I think part of it had to do with the fact that I was pregnant, and it was. I think my body physically I was less resistant of the medicine itself, and after that it usually takes a while for me to purge. You can feel. Personally, I can feel the medicine. You know, the instant I take it, and I don't know if that happens. This happens to either one of you guys. I can feel the energy of the medicine moving through my whole body. Like, I can feel it when it goes through, my throat, my stomach, and I can. Most of the time, I have this connection with the medicine where I can feel just getting like a body scan, like an energetic body scan. And I can feel the medicine just, going back and forth and working throughout it. So it's this feeling, this deep feeling of connection, and then when the purging happens, usually it's very small. It's a small amount of what I usually purge. And I think it's more of like, for me, that's when the medicine says like, okay, we finished stage number 1, which is the physical.
Mm-hmm.
Now, you're good physically. Now let's move on and start working, what you're here for. So that's how it usually goes for me. It's like, it's the medicine saying like, all right, I already cleanse your body. Now let's go clean the spirit. That's usually how it works.
Nice. That's nice that you have a relationship going with like a particular process that works for you.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. Yeah. I remember for me, the very first couple of times that I had the medicine, it was overwhelmingly nauseating. Like, I was just grounded to the floor, and I was dizzy, and
Yep.
I was moving, and I felt very uncomfortable. I was completely outside of my comfort zone, and so I was. I remember the very first time that I did it was in downtown San Jose with this teacher that moved out of the area, and she gave me just a normal cup, but I was already pretty receptive to energy, and so I took it and I immediately felt it, and it just like kept on building, and what I experienced was this overwhelming nausea. That's the first thing that I felt, and but I remember like making an effort with the breath and a few other techniques to keep it down, not to purge it out immediately, even though I was nauseated. I remember actually even standing up a few times just because I wanted to keep it down. Not I feel like it would have been wasted, right? That's how we sometimes feel about the medicine going out immediately. And so I remember just like being very, very dizzy and uncomfortable, and it was, for me, it was both. It was like going to the bathroom, and then yawning, and like the whole thing was like the perfect combo of all of the type of purging that you just mentioned. The yawning, I was sweating, I was like super dizzy, and the belly was just like uncomfortable, right? But like Brenda said, like after some time of taking medicine, um, then what starts to happen is, you develop a relationship with the medicine, right? So your biology establishes a common ground. So it's kind of like when you're drinking beer for the first time or wine for the first time. You don't have a relationship, and you're like, ugh. It's like everything about you disgusts. Is disgusting about the beer, right? So the same thing happens with the medicine, 'cause it doesn't taste like Kool-Aid, right? So in the bitterness and all of that, the body rejects it. It's like, I don't know what this is, and so that's actually something that happens sometimes, because the physical aspect, the biology is not used to the 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 everything about the medicine, right? The taste, the texture, the way that it sits in the stomach. So then the body ends up rejecting it, right? It doesn't have a relationship, and it rejects the medicine. And that's, people within a minute or two of taking it, like out it goes, right? And they think there's many excuses, many reasons, and stuff like that. But in reality, what is happening is the biology doesn't have an established relationship, and also sometimes the ego is a little afraid, right? The ego is it kind of knows that it's going to go into the unknown, and it takes the medicine. The medicine is the perfect symbol for going deep, uh, uh, beyond the veil, right? And so the ego is also like protecting through the physical aspect, and it's like, nope, it's too much, too yucky, and rationalizes, and out it goes. But one of the things that has developed after, use and consistent communion with Mother Ayahuasca has been, that not only it establishes a relationship, and you don't feel nauseated anymore, but now actually, you can feel immediately, and there's such a deep connection that there's an awareness of what it's doing in your body. Like as it's flowing down, you start getting maybe a little bit of a loose stomach, and it's like, oh, okay, so this is the French fries that I have from like a month ago or something like. I'm being I'm exaggerating a little bit, but you know what I mean. Like it still cleanses you. It will always cleanse you, and so that has been, for me on that first stage, the medicine. It's a very powerful detoxifier. It really like detoxifies everything from all of your organs, of course. More importantly, your stomach. But once it gets absorbed, it really cleanses everything else as well.
And
So
what's the purpose of the cleansing? So maybe you can talk a little bit, if you wouldn't mind, about why what the cleansing does for maybe the next few stages, or what it does to prepare us for some of the lessons.
yeah, there's a when we come to these questions, there's different traditions and different views, right? Different anyas. One of the anyas that resonates with me is that the body is a temple, right? And so if the temple is toxic, with uh, just think about toxins that are not belonging there, that they don't belong in the body, and they put strain and stress in the body. Even stress itself, it's too much cortisol, many different chemistry aspects, compounds that do not belong in the body, and maybe not so much that they don't belong, but they're not beneficial for the body, right? In excess, too much adrenaline, again, cortisol, or any other compound or toxin that is unbalancing neurochemistry as well. So the purpose of the purge is, if you have anything physical, right? Like if there's a physical unbalance with any of the organs, for example, maybe you have an excess of bile, or there is anything in your liver that needs to be cleansed. It's not operating at its maximum capacity. There's really the vehicle that we're here to experience life is the body, and so if the body is not in alignment with life, with expansion, with flow, then the spiritual aspects sometimes don't come. We've had a very very powerful brews that people sometimes come in because they're a little toxic, they're a little blocked physically. They don't connect to the brew at all. and this has to do with many things in regards to patterns of thinking and feeling for the person and all that. But primarily, what we see is that there is a inherent toxicity sometimes, and that can prevent. So the person then goes through a physical purge before they can start having communion with either more of Mother Ayahuasca or the other medicines that we sometimes have in the retreats, right? So the body is the temple, and so if you think about a temple, the priest invokes spirit, right? Whether it is a Hindu temple or a Catholic temple, the priest calls forward uh, whether it is a Yatiksi Viracocha or Brahman, Vishnu, whatever deity, and which is divine. And so when you think about that, this path, we've talked about it many times of how this is the path of embodying spirit, and really allowing spirit to come and settle, to guide, to direct, to inspire, to move, and go about, right, to order our lives. And so as we go through that process, if the body is a temple and the body is dirty, the spirit won't be able to. The priest cannot do the work appropriately. You don't go to a whether it's a Catholic or Hindu temple with a lot of trash in the hallways or things like that. They're always clean, really nice smelling, and things like this, right? So these are just analogies to how the body could be, as far as alignment and vitality and health in general. So the first stage of Mother Ayahuasca cleansing is just making sure that that's there, right? That aspect is something that can be, even when the brew has no purgative aspects, and the person goes straight into the second or the third stage of ayahuasca. It really, if the body is very toxic, the change is really hard. And you might remember on the integration emails we say, work with the body first, right? Like clean the body, cleanse the body. It is important to address the physical aspect first, the temple, and then we can start, like, once we start cleaning, then we start going more into the teaching aspects. That's my personal take on that. Uh, do you have any other views that you have encountered that are similar, Sabrina?
No, I think that's exactly what I would say too, is that the physical is critical for getting through those visions and those teachings. Having the body is physically clean helps the energetic cleansing that ayahuasca brings. So
Right.
I think, yeah, I think you kind of you said everything I could possibly have said about it. So
So,
it's good.
what would you say has been your experience with that second stage then? With
So
the
for the visionary, yeah, good boy. That first time I engaged with ayahuasca, it was eyes open, eyes closed. It didn't matter if I was looking at my feet or the stars or the inside of my bucket. I was seeing visions. I was, seeing myself. I was seeing my life. I was seeing different energies that I wouldn't have been able to name, but it was, knowing that I was fully cared for as I was heading into this teaching. It was almost like um, an auditory. So for me, it wasn't just the visuals. My first experience was auditory as well. So auditory hallucinations, and really kind of trying to figure out what I'm supposed to be listening to, what I'm supposed to be seeing. And finally at one point I was just like, and I think it's, it speaks to what my process is now, but I got sick of the visions. I got sick of the seeing all the visuals. I got sick of hearing all the sounds. I was like, this is fantastic, but I'm bored. So I got really tired of chasing down these beautiful fractals. Like, yeah, that's great, but that's not why I'm here. And um, and that was a good part of the night. And I think it happened in a few cycles where, the visions would come up. I remember getting up and going to the restroom and just not feeling like I was even close to stable, like being able to physically see where I was going. But that's also where I kind of would get a little bit dizzy and as I, trying to make am I seeing where my feet are going properly, or is that wrong too? Like, how much of my perception is wrong right now? How much of what I'm seeing is not physically what I'm seeing? So that's for me, the visual and the auditory. The auditory was probably the hardest, and the part that pissed me off the most about it, about the vision, because I was like, oh my God, that's enough. Like, can you change the fucking tone? I was so mad at this in this first experience with ayahuasca. I was like, you're gonna die. Really, this is it? I'm just gonna sit here and be tortured by this insane tone the whole night. Yeah, and then finally, you know, it stayed there. Like, it would come and go, and I would have these insane sounds that would, you know, permeate everything I could possibly think of at that moment. And then after, boy, I don't know, after a while, it was such a heavy experience at first. My first sitting with ayahuasca. I think, you know, as I look back, all the ayahuasca experiences that I've had since then have been really mild in the visuals, really mild. And I know that if I want to go deeper, I can. It's always there. If I want to sit back and meditate while I'm usually facilitating when I'm sitting with ayahuasca. And so I don't mind having that negotiability with that experience, that I can sit back and close my eyes and have those visuals if I want, or I can go deeper into, you know, any kind of work that I'm doing for myself. Or I can take that energy from that visual phase and work with others, and just be there with their experience and what they're potentially seeing and feeling. And in some cases, you know, have a better understanding of the energy that the individual participants or individuals in the circle, what they're experiencing, that I might be able to help them with. So it's migrated from vision and auditory, which ultimately, you know, I came to the conclusion with the auditory and the visions as well. It's really about what you choose to pay attention to. So what you're focusing on. And I mean, it was just a matter of, like, I think somebody had said, well, it's kind of, just treat it like you're eavesdropping, you know, across the room in a sort of crowded room. And, you know, you're focused on a very specific conversation. As you're trying to hear that conversation, that's what you hear. Everything else just kind of fades away. So really kind of tune into what it is that you want to hear. Yeah. So, and I would say that's been kind of what I do with the entire vision phase of ayahuasca is, you know, explore what it is that I want to pay attention to in that journey. Yeah. What's meaningful, and where am I not necessarily seeing meaning where there could be some. So it's a little bit different today than it was that first time. That was a trip. Yeah.
So for me, the first time I had it was very beautiful.
That's when you were pregnant with
that's when I was pregnant, and you know, there was no auditory. It was just visions of introspection, and you know, like kind of like traveling among stars, and I was actually able to. Part of my visions was going within my body and see my baby. You know, I think for me it was like very shocking to realize that, you know, at some point I was with like oh my God, I'm inside my womb. Like, how is this happening? You know, and it was very profound. There was different stages, but again, probably like you said, Serena, the first time it was a lot. There was a lot of visions, and as my relationship with Mother Ayahuasca has been progressing, I think there's times, you know, and I share this with several people. I think Mother Ayahuasca is so wise that there's times where you need a lot of visions to whether prepare yourself for what is coming. And there's times where it's like no, we're gonna skip this stage and we're going directly into healing. So I think every single time it's different, and it's exactly what you need. When you need a lot of visions to either mentally prepare yourself or to make sense of what is coming next, you get a lot of visions. And there's times where for myself I get no visions. I get very minimal second stage and then more of a deep. But I guess it depends. Every single time is different, but definitely every single time it's exactly what I need.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and one of the other things, I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but the cleaner you are, for example, there's practices, right? Like there's a dieta in the jungle, and they make you go through a diet of maybe a week. It varies, right? 3 days, 5 days, 7, 10, 15, 30 days. And so you're just dieting with, for example, bobinsana or chiricsanango or different plants, right? And and so as you clean your body more, that second stage tends to be a little bit more, because what happens is your pineal gland detoxifies as well, decalcifies, and it's cleansed. It's clean to be able to be stimulated even more once you take the medicine, and then vision is pretty strong, right? So. um, I do too. Like I remember that first one time that I had the medicine. I think I fasted for like 5 days, and it was just water fast, and it was pretty intense. And that's one of the things that I noticed. But also, as we start to, and just to create a parenthesis, the second stage is the visionary stage. Is the sexy part of ayahuasca, what everybody wants ayahuasca for, to see the lights and talk to the aliens and meet the archangels and ETs and all of these things, right? So that's the what we call in the tradition, we call it entering the causa y pacha, which is the time space, which is infinite. There's infinite number of multiverses and dimensions and beings, and it's vast and infinite. So you can tap into a multitude of different type of experiences, right? And you can say that they're all symbolisms for your path, but there's a truth to their existence. So in that second stage, you can find one of the things that we find is a lot of like the moment you realize that you're in that second stage is when you start seeing sacred geometry, a lot of colors, very colorful patterns of just lights, and for the most part they're very geometric in order, but also sometimes once in a while they can be free flowing, right? Free flowing shapes and forms, and people say that they see a lot of like tentacles and things like this, like shapes of energy, different colors, structures of energy, of electricity and magnetism with different forms of color. And it can get pretty overwhelming sometimes. The visuals, because they each of the forms that you interact with, they make you feel something, right? And so they're really showing you how you feel. Different fields show you how you feel about yourself in front of different things. And so that geometric patterns, and also that's entering the time space, and time slows down a little bit in that stage, and then it's what we call entering the time space, and the causa y pacha, the existence of the time space, and that's really entering that next dimension of existence, which is outside of time and space, which is the two limitations of this 3D physical reality. And as you enter that time space, then you find everything else that is beyond the veil. Like you said, Sabrina, I think is very important. One of the things that we always say is, there's people that actually use, believe it or not, there's people that use ayahuasca as a recreational drug, right? As a recreational, even if they consider it medicine, it's still very recreational because they're just there to have a good time,
Mhm.
exploring the infinite possibilities of the cosmos, right? Universe or cosmos. And so it is part of the teaching within the church, and many traditions, like the Quero and Shipibo and other ones in the jungle and in the Andes of Peru as well, that we use this in our favor, meaning like instead of looking outward and connecting to something that is, potentially just random, right? It could be something that you might be picking up from the space of ceremony when you're sitting with another 10, 15, 30, another 30 other people. So it is the best use always is to go inward, to know yourself. And so that is usually the suggestion that we have, instead of going out there to meet, you know um, Bashar, or any other. There's a ton of different entities that are fourth dimensional and fifth dimensional, and they have some guidance, but they have a specific agenda, right? That serves their purpose, and that's fine. That's always okay. But this path is really never to follow anyone. Is really to find your own following with yourself. Really to be able to connect to that guidance that you have within. Not so much to depend on external guidance, right? And so the suggestion that we have for anybody that is interested in these medicines, and really all medicines have these three stages, but specifically with Mother Ayahuasca, since it's so tangible of a space that you enter, it is important to use that as an opportunity, as a tool for you to go inward and start seeing more of yourself, more from within. And then in that space, using that vision, that amplified vision that you have, that Mother Ayahuasca is granting you, then you can find past traumas. You can find uh, visions of how you carry things from your parents, ancestry bonds, and very clear images from your childhood, from formative years that make you who you are here and now. And at the same time, they maybe not benefiting you anymore. It's the traditional say that we have, uh, letting go of what doesn't serve me, right? So in that second stage, you have the potential, right? The potential is open for you to be able to see and recognize what is that, what are those things within myself that are not allowing me to flow with what I want. What is it that I want to create in my life? Which is usually the same for everyone, right? We all want harmony. We all want peace. We all want abundance. We all want love, joy, and so, what are those things within myself that are preventing me from my own nature? Really, that is my personal experience and understanding of that second stage, the visionary aspect. I don't know if you have any additional comments or questions about that, Sabrina, before we move into the last one.
No, not really. I think it's interesting to we talk about that visionary stage at every circle that we have, and there's I think benefit to it. Like you said, there's extreme benefit, and I agree with Brenda. Picture's worth 1,000 words. Sometimes ayahuasca needs to just draw me a picture because I'm not going to get it any other way. So yeah. No, and that leads kind of right into the teaching, although from my understanding, these and from my experience, they don't always go in perfect, order of purge, vision, teaching, purge, vision, teaching. They can go back and forth and weave throughout. So the visionary is going to help with the for me, every time I would see a new, I would try to think of something new, I would end up purging it, and then that would be part of the teaching. So they're very intermixed. Andres, I'm really curious to hear for you what your teacher experience was.
And
I don't know if you want
you're referring to that third stage?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's always a personal relationship in between you and Mother Ayahuasca. Whether it is it's the combination, of course, right, of chacruna, the relationship that you can establish with chacruna, with each of the plants that you're having communion with. Sometimes our brew includes chaliponga, so that's a different essence, a different spirit that it's added to the brew, and bobinsana and a few others. But as you develop an affinity, as you develop a relationship with the brew and with the plants that you are having communion with, then especially because of that second stage, looking inward, you find an openness when you start to relax in looking inward, which is usually what brings chaos. When you look inward, whether it is in meditation or doing kriya or doing something else, sometimes when you start to look inward and you start really searching, you can find um, um, some of the blockages, right? Especially in Mother Ayahuasca, because it's a healing session, right? You're healing. You're going to take ayahuasca, not so much to have a good time. The good time comes after you reconcile what you find, but it's a healing session where you find some of the blockages, right? Some of the things that are the hucha that is stagnant, right? Like the cow side that is not moving, the the energy that is blocked, the energy that is stagnant. And so as you find those aspects within yourself, then it's time to move. And then here comes the energetic purge, and here comes all of that. As you start to relax and establish a better relationship with the medicine, you find that because there's more of a flow, more of a consistent flow, and a good relationship with the medicine. What is flowing, it is a very particular specific message, and it's a vibration that is within you at that moment because you ingested the brew, and it's the essence of the plant. And so then what happens is you start to see you start to see a message directly from Mother Ayahuasca. You start to see a message, and this is, Mother Ayahuasca speaks sometimes through a serpent, sometimes through the vine itself can present itself to you. Some people on the very first time that they had ayahuasca, they've been meditating for 15 years and doing kriya every day, things like this, and they immediately connect with a voice that is a loving, grandmother-like voice that is uh, very gentle, again, very loving, and then it has a specific message for them. What is it that you should focus upon within yourself, right? That you might not be paying attention, or sometimes you have things within yourself. We have things within ourselves that we are in agreement with. For example, I am in agreement with a specific rule from society, that is based on looks. For example, you shouldn't look this way. This is the acceptable way. And you made an agreement and you forget about it, and you don't see that is limiting you, that is putting an imposition on your energy. And so then, because you have an agreement, you're not even seeing that as a problem, even though it might be creating a problem in your flow, in your energy, in yourself. And so that then Mother Ayahuasca comes and says, how do you really feel about this? And then it shows you very particularly, the conflict that you have at a subconscious level with this agreement. So it is a specific teacher. It teaches you. It takes you by the hand, and it shows you things that are maybe not so obvious to you. And this is a beautiful teacher, and she does this in a loving way, where you can see this love reflected in the teaching itself, but also in the way that she takes you by the hand to do these things, right? To face these things. They call her, not for nothing, they call her the grandmother. If you think about a beautiful grandma that is always taking care of the grandkids and loving and hugging and kissing. It is that type of essence. For me, the first thing I felt it more like a mom, but it is the grandmother. It is that grandmother energy. And so the teaching aspect for me particularly has been all about the future. Really, it gives, obviously, yeah. For years I was working. It was particular messages of, let's take a look at this, let's take a look at that. What are you doing about this? How do you feel about this? In relationship with everything, in relationship to finances, in relationship to raising my kids, to my partner, work, co-workers, everything, right? And it puts everything into perspective. And after a little while of working, some years of consistently meeting her at that point, and then also doing my homework, which is like, okay, now I have to understand my life with this new perspective of how do I feel about this, right? And little by little started resolving these areas in my life. Then what happens is you create more flow, right? you trust the path and you kick and scream, but you change the things that you have to change, and then you start to experience a little bit more of an openness. Your heart settles, and it's your mind is not racing for every situation anymore, and you start getting all of the benefits, all of the growth benefits from within the medicine. And then what happens is when you go meet her again, then she starts giving you fruits. She starts giving you like really beautiful gifts that are visions for the future of what's to come for you, for your path, your spiritual path, your involvement with humanity, with your involvement with the collective. And it's just like a very clear glimpses of your potential, of what can be, that inspires your actions, your thoughts, and that sets new beliefs, new core beliefs within yourself about what it is possible. And then you start enacting that change little by little. This is in that space is where I personally received the call with Padre Sapito. That's when he came to me, is through one of those spaces of total bliss, that it's just Mother Ayahuasca is just showering you with gifts, showering you with blessings of all of these visions. And then that's when Padre Sapito came to visit, for the first time, to set an invitation, right, to start having, not only, I mean, I was already working with him, and I already was caring for the toad back then, for Sol and Luna, that we had as pets. And so now it was like an invitation, so in that space it's a space of total communion with spirit and with your future, with your higher self. And that is a little bit more of the spiritual aspect, right? The teaching aspect of Mother Ayahuasca, that teaches you what is your own path, what is your personal path, according to your energy, according to what you envision and what you feel your heart is capable of doing. And for everybody's different, right? Not everybody's going to receive the same experiences, and nobody is going to receive the same visions and glimpses. But for the most part, it's all in coherence, meaning like it doesn't matter what I receive. What you receive is equally valuable and perfect, right? It just has a different way of weaving together with your partner, with your coworker, that might be also in this type of this type of path with sacred medicines. And so that's my personal take. What has been for you particularly, Sabrina?
So for me as a teacher, I guess that final phase of ayahuasca as a teacher has it's always been like a conversation, and it always sounds to me like you said, it's a presentation of, well, what about this? How do you feel about that? And why do you feel that way?
Yeah.
What foundation do you have for feeling that way? Who told you that you're supposed to feel that way? Did you tell like all of these things, all of these really heavy conversations, which has been a way of ayahuasca teaching me how to have that conversation with myself when I'm not on medicine. So, and that's been, right. That's the integration piece. I don't need to be on the medication or on the, why do you keep saying that? I don't need to be on that. This is the second time I've done that.
Did you take your medication today?
I know, it sounds so pharmaceutical. But it's a matter of the medicine showing you that you don't have to be on the medicine to have these same profound moments, that you can, when you feel this feeling, ask yourself this question. That's kind of what the medicine has taught me, is how to examine those internal worlds when I'm, not necessarily as open as you would be on medicine, and how to open myself up the way that I'm open on medicine. And that's, I think, been the long journey, the long haul, individual lessons or opportunities to learn. I mean, my first session was, and the biggest, the most profound. I'm sure there's tons that came out of that session, but my first session, the biggest teaching that I have there is that that I guess what came about motherhood, about being a mother, and how my view on being a mother, or how I was as a mother, and how I need a mother, or all these things about motherhood. that first journey really kind of clarified for me what motherhood was, and all of these assignments that I had given it, expectations and projections and paradigms and beliefs that I had used to muddy it up. So there's they were just how do we say, inharmonious, I guess. They were not a harmonious way of thinking about those roles. And that was a big one for me, just thinking that I was a terrible mother. I had a terrible mother. All these things that judgment where judgment wasn't necessary, or where judgment wasn't useful. So that was, from little, very specific things, specific characteristics, specific habits, all the way to just how to really change the way I respond to life in general. But internally, I really mastered prior to engaging with sacred plant medicines, I had mastered controlling my expression of emotion. Like I was going to only show what I wanted to show at that moment. There were, definitely, you weren't going to see anything I didn't want you to see. And I didn't want people to see much. So it was very closed off, and that expression, or that understanding of why I do those kind of things, and how that's still a strength, right? I would judge my emotion, I would judge the situation I was in, I would judge all of these things. And from ayahuasca really teaching me how to rewrite those stories in a more productive and more efficient way. Yeah, some of the tools that I have, from my previous life, as I like to say, are useful still, like in understanding how they roll, how to use them more beneficial ways. And that's really been kind of the long haul teaching. So it's been so many different aspects of what it's like to be a student that I never really imagined I would learn. Ayahuasca has been an amazing teacher. And what I appreciate most is it's not always while you're in, while you're fresh in the cup. I mean, it can be weeks and months later, years later, that you have realizations from your experience with the medicine. So yeah, for me, the teachings from ayahuasca are understandings or rememberings or realizations, and that's my experience.
Yeah, that's actually something that I enjoy a lot, seeing in participants. Sometimes a day or 2 days later after the first day, on a 4-day retreat, we have mother first, and then the second day or the third day, they actually remember, like a couple of retreats ago, we had a lady that after having a really hard time connecting with mother on the first night, mother showed up for her on the next day and the third day, and it was just like, it's me, Mother Ayahuasca, I'm telling you this, on other medicines.
Yep.
On other medicines, so it is. It is not always like we expect her. The expectation does really put a stop on the way that she presents herself, right? She's not willing to be dominated or, by the minds, right? By the mind's ego and fear. It should be,
One of my favorite parts about my experience with ayahuasca is that first experience I had. I eventually got to a point where I was playing a game, and I'm a natural. I was born a rebel. So I'm sitting there on ayahuasca, and I would just be like, well, how about if I think about this? And it would be some kind of negative, belief that I had about somebody not liking me or somebody being mad at me. And I'd be like, well, how about this? I'll just think about this, and then I would like immediately, and I did that a few times, and I started laughing because I'm like, okay, this is, anytime I think about something that has negative emotion tied to it, I throw up. It would become a game of that. And that was, again, it's like, okay, this is what the negative emotion feels like, and this is what it feels like to let it go. Yeah.
That's definitely guidance right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What about you? How's it been your process with the teaching aspect?
I think the first time it was really connecting with that divine love,
Mm-hmm.
and also that divine empowerment. And I remember, like, I kind of have like this image of myself before my first ayahuasca, and then like after the ayahuasca. It's like I just receive all this download of like self empowerment, that in a very, it wasn't overwhelming. It was just a very loving, just download of energy, and reconnecting with that. And I think for the most part of it has been, if I was to summarize, all my experiences in a few words, it's been learning how to be gentle and strong at the same time. Like be gentle when you need to be gentle. Of course, let go of what doesn't serve you anymore. But then at the same time, has been, for the most part, has been uh, feeling okay about being empowered. And it's been like you have all this power, and the divine feminine has all this power, and it's like for most of my experiences is, like Sabrina mentioned, it's a conversation. I can, for the most part of it, I can almost see this like strong lady, super gentle, but a really strong presence, like sitting down with me and showing me, like, now this is what you have to work on now. Let's talk about this. Let's talk about this other thing. Um, but I guess more than anything has been the balance of love and power, and at the same time, not because you're loving, you're less empowered. Um, I guess that will be like a brief summary of all the times. And yeah, and of course there's times where, there's more, letting go of what no longer serves me, and she can show me, like you mentioned, Sabrina, like, like I keep thinking like, well, I really don't want this within me, and then she's like, just let it go, just let it go, just let it go. And there's been times where it's been like, now, there's been a couple of sessions where I can literally put 2 or 3 different ceremonies together and say, like, this past ceremony was letting go, and then this other ceremony is like, we let go of all this, so now we're gonna, substitute, we're gonna integrate all this new knowledge, and now we're gonna learn, we're gonna teach you how to be something else. And I think that's the beauty of Mother Ayahuasca, that it's, like, it's this loving lady teaching you how to be the best version of yourself, in a sense. So yeah.
Thank you for sharing. Yeah, those are the 3 stages that usually we go through, and like Sabrina said, is they're non-linear. It doesn't mean that you're gonna have all 3 of them, that anybody's gonna have all 3 of them. Maybe if you have a specific relationship already formed, you can go straight into the teaching aspect, right? If this is your first time, likely, and this is sort of a rule of thumb, people go into the first stage and maybe the second stage a little bit, but maybe not the third one so much. It can all happen at once, where you start feeling the energy, the vision, the teaching, and then you start purging, kind of like what Sabrina was saying with like going and choosing different images to try to redirect. And so it is just something to recognize that where am I, in the process of the experience. It is something to observe and to discern, and just knowing where am I standing, where am I processing right now. If it's purely physical, if it's energetically physical, if it's visionarily, if it's if it's a teaching aspect, the spiritual path of your own unfolding. And this is a little bit what we wanted to share today. We'll have one last ayahuasca session, ayahuasca podcast in a few weeks, and sending you, as always, sending you many blessings your way, to you, your loved ones, and we'll see you next time.